Okay. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. I see that we have connected with our other participants who are listening in with our live stream and who would be able to pick this up a little bit later as well, since we are recording. We just ended the first part of our session a little bit earlier, where we heard from Dr. Velma Scanterbury, the first Black transplant surgeon, who shared a lot of really, really interesting data with us in regards to what has been happening in STEM. Really energized, at least it energized me, that we still have a lot more work that needs to get done. And, you know, bringing everyone together in this type of format, in this platform, most certainly does that. We can have some discussions, and we need to really think about actions, right? And activating as we move forward. We are, of course, what brought us together is under the auspices that diversity in STEM, there are a lack of knowledge in regards to the opportunities that are out there for our faculty or students, folks who are in the STEM field, to have some knowledge about these opportunities and how best that they might be able to start even pursuing them. I'm really grateful for this partnership that we have with NSF, and really happy that we're able to invite some of our NSF partners and program officers here to share a little bit about their respective programs, so that folks are aware of where they might be able to situate their research interests. And we most definitely need to be encouraging more of our diverse communities to be applying for these sponsored research projects. We will have and hear from 3 different program officers during this time. I don't really have a set order. I hope it's okay if I can just call on each of you to share with us a little bit about the program, your programs, what are some of the different things maybe that have been funded, and, you know, what kind of steps do people need to take in order to pursue some of these opportunities? Because I get a sense after talking to some folks that they don't even know where to start in terms of this. So I want us to start off this session a little bit by hearing from Dr. Paige Anderson, if you're ready and can share out, and then we'll move on to Dr. Romano, and then we'll end it off with Dr. Sridhar, who will be joining us at around a little bit after 2 based on his availability.
Sure, thank you. And as I start to share my screen, I want to certainly thank you, Dr. Morris, for the invitation to be here. I am really excited to engage with the Cheney community about opportunities specifically in the HBCU UP program at the National Science Foundation. I just want to make sure, can you all see my slides? Awesome, thank you. And I'll preface my comments here by saying that I didn't provide too much information in my slides about how to engage, but I'll start by saying it's really 3 needs, right? 3 must-haves. You must be have an idea of your own research interests and how it is that you would like to advance STEM education and research, right? The conversation cannot begin if persons are not clear about how they aim to really advance knowledge in a given area. So I hope that is very specific, right? In helping individuals know that they must come to the table with an idea where other conversations can grow and take place. The second thing you need to do is certainly engage with your Office of Sponsored Research. They are the authorized officials that certainly help you as a faculty member or administrator, however you find yourself situated at the university. They are the conduits of the university that will help transmit your full proposal to the National Science Foundation. So none of this work cannot be done without those persons in that office. And so certainly building a relationship in that regard is hugely important. And then lastly, engage with program officers, and that's why we're here, right? And so at the National Science Foundation, we have numerous programs. I'm here today to specifically discuss the Historically Black Colleges and Universities undergraduate program. I'll also mention briefly another program, the HBCU Excellence in Research program, through my talk. But what you see here on this first slide is the list of program officers that are available to discuss these opportunities with you. While I am presenting, I'm Carleitta Paige Anderson. I'm the lead program director of the HBCU Up program at the National Science Foundation. But I think it's important to also note that I'm a former faculty member and administrator of an HBCU, specifically Virginia Union University, which is fairly small, but certainly aiming to grow its research capacity. And so in many ways, comparable to that of Cheyney University. And so I'm excited to be with you. Just as a brief background, HBCU Up was really established at the National Science Foundation in 1998. So we've been around for quite some time, but our central goal is to enhance the quality of undergraduate STEM education and research at HBCUs in order to broadly increase the representation of persons who have been historically excluded from STEM spaces. And so by way of in broadening the participation in the workforce and or STEM undergraduate programs, this particular program at the National Science Foundation is for institutions like yours. And so you can see there, there's a distribution via the graph of where the HBCUs are in the country. And so we certainly are very intentional about our efforts to focus on this unique school population, but also doing so while underscoring the differences that exist among them. We know that not every HBCU is created the same. And so through this solicitation, as I go through, I think it's important for all of you to consider what the needs are at your university and certainly make the case for describing what the current environment is and how you aim to grow and impact that space with regard to STEM education and research. Oops. Wrong button. And so how do we do it? Our program really supports the development, implementation, and study of evidence-based innovative models that are going to prepare HBCU undergraduates for the STEM workforce. And so how that happens is in a myriad of ways. We've listed here a number of examples, but we recognize that we're not going to achieve this goal of ensuring a diverse workforce, particularly representative of students who attend HBCUs, if we aren't addressing enhancements and development in the curriculum. We're not going to do so if students aren't afforded opportunities to engage in authentic research experiences. We also recognize that there are critical transition points, whether it's students who are leaving the K through 12 learning environment to transition to college, if they're coming from community colleges, making that transition over, or frankly speaking, we understand that the retention and growth of students in their current institutions over time varies, right? And so how are universities uniquely situated to address and support students through that process? In addition to targeting students, we also recognize that students aren't going to grow if the faculty at said institutions aren't able to grow as well. And so we have funding mechanisms that support not only faculty professional and leadership development, but also their research, building their research capacity, and doing so, whether it be through discipline-specific research, again, in an area for the National Science Foundation that's aligned with our agency's interest, but also in research endeavors that informed strategies to broaden participation in general, right, through STEM education. And then what's listed here, which I think is of extreme importance, is also there's opportunities to really build and bolster efforts that strengthen the preparation of students who aim to be teachers and work in the K through 12 systems, specifically in those STEM disciplines. And so while these are, just a brief sampling of ways in which our program really aims to make gains in order to increase broadening participation efforts, we certainly recognize that there are additional ways that are not reflected here and invite you to join us in broadening this impact. And so our current solicitation for HBCU Up is currently described by solicitation 2559. And we have listed in that solicitation 5 specific funding tracks. Okay, I know there are 6 listed here, but the funding tracks that are specifically described in the solicitation 2559 are Broadening Participation Research in STEM, Research Initiation Awards, Targeted Infusion Projects, Implementation Projects, which have an additional opportunity called Achieving Competitive Excellence, and then lastly, Broadening Participation Research Centers. I've also included HBCU Excellence in Research. This particular track was formally included in the HBCU Up solicitation. However, it now is a standalone program with its own solicitation. I've listed here that solicitation number, HBCU EIR is how I'll refer to this going forward, is under solicitation 20542. And this solicitation is managed by the Office of Integrative Activities. So while we do have HBCU Up program officers that work on the team that manages this through a working group, there's a clear distinction that I want to make sure I underscore, because while this track started in HBCU Up, it is now in the Office of Integrative Activities, and there's some distinct differences, if you will, in how those proposals are processed. And so it'll be really important to make sure that you focus on the details of those 2 distinct solicitations. And so our question that we like to start with is, how do you seek to enhance STEM education research? That's really starting with your interest, your ideas. Again, the first of those 3 needs, if you will, in order to make gains in this regard. We want to, make sure that we're starting in that area. And so currently our solicitation is designed to help the community do so in at least 3 different ways. So we can broadly categorize, if you will, the funding tracks to be opportunities that advance efforts to improve faculty research capacity. And so I'll briefly discuss those 3 mechanisms on the subsequent slides. So we have a very faculty-centered approach. We have strategies or funding opportunities that allow institutions to change, if you will, their environments. They can do it on a small scale via the targeted infusion projects, or a large scale through implementation. And then, of course, as I mentioned, the Achieving Competitive Excellence. And then finally, there's a way to make a national impact through our funding tracks through the Broadening Participation Research Centers. And so I'll take a brief moment, very brief, and really give a high-level overview of each of these opportunities, where I hope all of those persons who are listening can at least find one of these funding opportunities or funding tracks that is very appropriate for you and your interest and your institution. And so if you answer that question by saying you aim to bolster faculty research capacity, that means, are you a faculty member with your own discipline-specific research interests? Well, these are 3 very different funding opportunities that might be available and of interest, or that are certainly available, but might be of interest to you. I want to begin here with our Broadening Participation Research in STEM track. This project, or this particular track, supports projects for up to 3 years of a maximum award size of $350,000. And this particular track supports projects that seek to improve the preparation and success of HBCU undergraduate students from STEM disciplines for their interest in, again, transitioning into STEM graduate programs and or STEM careers. I really started there because many people recognize that the core values, if you will, of the HBCU community is by and large the extent to which these specific universities are able to help students be successful. The question is, how is it happening? How are you as a faculty member transforming the learning environment to ensure the long-term success of students in STEM? How you're doing that is highly recognized as education-based research. And so we invite you to consider what you're already doing in your classrooms, which you have been doing since the beginning, and how you might be able to leverage those interventions in the form of a formal research investigation, and certainly submit your idea and your outcomes thus far, if you have some preliminary strategies that you've seen some gains in, but certainly frame that in a way where you can add to the body of knowledge as it pertains to broadening participation research. And so we are excited about this particular track, because we know that there's some very unique cultural elements that are present in the HBCU community. And we likely know that, again, at Cheyney University, there's things that are even more unique in your learning environment. And so how exactly are faculty members supporting students in their overall teaching and learning endeavors is really appropriate for broadening participation in STEM research. The latter two are really about the disciplinary research for faculty members. And so if you're a biochemist like myself, or if you are a physicist, if you are a psychologist or social science researcher, there is a space for you at the National Science Foundation. The Research Initiation Awards, just differentiating between the two, as I mentioned, these are formally in our HBCU Up track for $300,000. And this is really to help faculty at HBCUs to form collaborations and partnerships with other NSF-funded centers or a national laboratory. This is distinctly different from that of the Excellence in Research, where the target audience in terms of PIs are more established. So for the Research Initiation Awards, this is for junior faculty, new to the institution, or have not engaged in research in a significant amount of time, and you're looking to start a research program. Whereas the Excellence in Research track is for persons who have already had some preliminary success, and they're looking to really broaden and transition to the research directorates of the National Science Foundation, right? So broadly speaking, beyond the Education and Human Resources Directorate where HBCU Up exists, but more to help forge relationships in the Bio Directorate or engineering and so on and so forth. On average, those projects are up 3 to 5 years. There's no time limitation that's identified for EIR, but there's also no budgetary maximums in that particular track as well. But we do ask that whatever you propose, that your budget is commensurate with the scope of work. If you aim to enhance the quality of education or STEM undergraduate education, we have another 3 different opportunities through the HBCU Up solicitation, from short-term projects up to 3 years as targeted infusion that's really aimed to make short-term gains. And so we find many TIP projects that are either introducing new curriculum or certificate programs. There's a broad range of ways institutions have responded. And then we have the larger awards, implementation or ACE awards, that's really about implementing efforts or designing new strategies, but really efforts to increase the numbers, broadly speaking, of students engaged in STEM, and certainly are demonstrating success in STEM as they transition to graduate school and or the workforce. The ACE Awards track is only available to those who've had up to 3 previous implementation awards, and they are looking to make a change and really a splash to advance knowledge on a national landscape, which is very much consistent with having those said institutions then be eligible for our final category, which is broadening participation research centers, up to $9 million over 5 years. This is really for those institutions that are really positioned to lead efforts to disseminate the success of what is happening at HBCUs, particularly in educating African American students who happen to be majoring in STEM disciplines. As I close, I just wanted to bring to your attention, I certainly don't mind sharing these slides with the organizers, but beyond the funding mechanisms that I've mentioned, there are a number of Dear Colleague letters that have recently been released that are specifically targeting faculty members from HBCUs, those that are regarding the Earth's surface, but climate change, even those that are really looking to forge collaborations and via planning grants. And so there's a number of opportunities that are available to stay informed. I invite you to join the HBCU Up Listserv. The instructions are there. And certainly if you'd like, you can also email us with general questions, even if it's how do we join the Listserv at HBCU_up at nsf.gov, or certainly you are welcome to contact all of the program officers and our program specialist, Tony Equus, here for more information. I'll pause again and say thank you for the time, and certainly allocate more time for my other colleagues to share more about their programs. And I'll also stick around as well if there are any questions. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much, Dr. Paige Anderson. We will pivot and move to Dr. Romano. I know that we have, in the nation, we have about a little over 100 HBCUs, Cheney, of course, being one of them, but we will welcome sharing this out with some of our other sister institutions so that they are aware of the program. And as they join and participate, Breaking Barriers Network, that will be most helpful as well. Dr. Romano?
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Let me just get my slides up, make sure I have this done correctly. Uh-oh, did I get the right thing? Yes. Can you just see no, this is not, sorry.
Sharing the wrong screen, it's okay. If stop your share and reshare it,
Okay.
that should be okay.
I'm not sure. Why is it doing this? Share.
Your PowerPoint now.
You're good now.
Thank you. Okay. So thank you again for the invitation to speak today. I really appreciate it. I'm Sandra Romano. I'm a program director at NSF, a rotating program director. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. I'm in the Division of Human Resource Development, like Carleitta, who just spoke with you, in the Directorate for Education and Human Resources. And I'm going to be talking, I work with a few different programs. I'm going to be talking about two of them, but I wanted to provide just a really high level overview of where I'm coming from and where you're going to hear some of the other speakers about. As you know, the NSF is the only federal agency where the mission includes supporting all fields of fundamental and basic science and engineering research, except for the medical sciences. So we're tasked with keeping the United States at the leading edge of discovery in areas from astronomy to zoology. This is a picture of we were created in Congress by 1950 with the mission to promote the progress of science, to advance the national health, prosperity, and welfare, and to secure the national defense. And this is the building in Alexandria where most of us are no longer working, but when you get a chance, it's a good place to come and visit. I'm not going to go through all of this, and again, I will share the slides with the organizers, but just in the interest of time, I wanted to give you this high level overview of sort of NSF by the numbers. Our 2021, fiscal year 2021 budget was $8.5 billion. And we funded over 2,000 institutions and over 12,000 awards. So lots of different kinds of research and work being supported, and lots of opportunities for scientists and faculty. A brief overview of the structure. Again, more to show you where I'm coming from. There's a number of directorates, the biological sciences, engineering, computer and information sciences, geosciences, mathematical and physical sciences, social, behavioral, and economic sciences that covers all of those areas. And all of those areas have programs that you might be interested in. Carleitta and I, and some of the program officers you'll hear tomorrow are in the Directorate for Education and Human Resources, where there's 4 divisions. We're in the HRD, the Division of Human Resource Development, which is down here. I think Nigamanth, who you'll be hearing from next, is from the Division of Graduate Education. And speaking just for HRD, we're very proud to say we're celebrating our 30 years. The program was created 30 years ago, and the division has served as a focal point for NSF's agency-wide commitment to enhancing the quality and excellence of STEM education and research through broadening participation. And we have about 10 different programs that do that in different ways. So you've just heard from Carleitta, who was talking about the HBCU program. I'm going to talk today about the AGEP program and the LSAMP program. And I think tomorrow you're going to hear about Advance and HSI and NSF Includes. And again, lots of opportunities in all of these programs. The budget is over, our investments are over $210 million per year to support research and education. So I've included this size as a brief overview of the NSF proposal and award process, in part to sort of emphasize, to add to Carleitta's list of how to participate. So yes, submitting, submitting proposals is really great. Another great way to participate is in the review process. And this is sort of the phase 2 of that process. We are always looking for reviewers, and it's a great way to get to understand the process and learn how to create competitive proposals. External reviewers are essential to the review process, and we're always looking for people. So you can always reach out to program officers about this. And again, to emphasize one of the other aspects that Carleitta mentioned, engagement with program officers, kind of like students, program officers, like professors are, we encourage students to come and talk to their professors, that the professors should be their best friends. Same thing in NSF, program officers should be your best friends. And we love talking to proposers. So, again, that was a little bit rushed in the interest of time, but I just wanted to give you that overview. So the 2 programs I'm going to talk about that I've been working with are alliance-based programs. The first I'll talk about is the Alliances for Graduate Education in the Professoriate. And the goal of that program is to increase the number of African American, Hispanic American, Native American, Indian, Alaska Native, Native Hawaiian, and Native Pacific Islanders faculty in STEM. So this program the idea is to increase the number of faculty from groups that are underrepresented in STEM. And we do this through an alliance. We're in the 23rd year of the program. And we have alliances, about 26 alliances. This map sort of shows you where, and the colors indicate the numbers. The alliances are generally between 3 to 9 partnering institutions. And so at this point, we have about 123 universities in the program. Those alliances are focusing their work on faculty, what we call faculty career pathway alliance models. And these are programs that focus either on doctoral candidates, postdocs, and even faculty to advance them into academia in the professoriate. And the idea is to develop these models so that they can be reproduced and scaled at a national level. And some of these models have already started to do that. The solicitation, the current solicitation is NSF 21-576. And again, one of the great ways of, when you start thinking about these different programs and thinking about where you're going to apply to or where you want to work with, you want to read the solicitation very carefully. It's usually, it's a lot, but you really do need to look at it very carefully. As an overview, the solicitation, we have just similar to HBCU, we only have 3 tracks at this time. And all of the tracks focus on addressing systemic racism in the STEM disciplines at universities and colleges. So we're really looking at trying to get systemic approaches that employ approaches that target systemic and institutional change to advance the AGEP populations toward tenure and promotion in STEM disciplines in academia. And like I said, the alliances, for the most part now, we're looking for alliances that are similar institutions of higher learning, and they propose collaborative project, and they include change agents with relevant expertise as leaders, and are also looking for an intersectional approach to designing and for project design and change strategies. We do, a number of our alliances are have HBCUs are a part of a number of our alliances and lead a couple of them. Howard leads one of our alliances, and they are working on a project to advance, to provide community college experience to STEM majors, to sort of encourage them to go on to the professoriate. Another one of our projects that's led by Virginia Tech, and that's not an HBCU, but it has other HBCUs with it. They are looking at advancing faculty working at HBCUs that are all but dissertation to complete their dissertation. So lots of different possibilities and great opportunities there. Again, a quick overview of the different models, the different tracks. The Faculty Career Pathways Alliance model is what I've just been discussing, and this supports awards for the development, implementation, evaluation, and institutionalization of alliance models within the similar institutions. The awards are for close to $3 million, and the last competition will be in August with a letter of intent due in June. So this is a new solicitation, and we've created these other two tracks, what are called the AGEP Catalyst Alliance and Catalyst Alliances, which are smaller awards for 2-year collaborations to sort of study how to develop the ITA, the Institutional Transformation Alliance Award. And I won't go through the details of how these get structured, but again, the idea is how to get institutions together to think about how to address systemic issues at the institutional level to make changes that would support the advancement of underrepresented faculty from underrepresented groups to advance into the professoriate. And the team of program officers, we have Mark Letty is the lead program officer, program director. I'm on the team. Carrie Hall is another one of our program directors, and Maurice Deuce is our program specialist. And you can feel free to contact any of us about this, about the program. So the second program I'm going to talk to you about is the Lewis Stokes Alliances for Minority Participation. And like HRD, it is 30 years old and was celebrating its 30th year this year. It was authorized by Congress in 1991 with the goal of significantly increasing the number of students from underrepresented groups successfully completing STEM degree programs in order to diversify the workforce. So it provides funding to alliances, again, groups of institutions that implement comprehensive, evidence-based, innovative, and sustained strategies that ultimately result in the graduation of well-prepared, highly qualified students from underrepresented groups who pursue careers in STEM. And these are envisioned as a partnership between different institutions of higher education, as well as government research and research centers and industry. It covers all of the disciplines, and again, participants can be African Americans, Hispanics, Native Americans, Alaska Natives, and Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders. As I said, the emphasis is placed on transforming undergraduate STEM education, looking for these innovative evidence-based recruitment and retention strategies, and enabling successful transfer of students from 2-year to 4-year institutions. So the alliances can include 2-year institutions, and one of the tracks is actually 4 alliances of just community colleges, 2-year institutions. One of the big emphases is on increasing access to high quality research experiences for the students and facilitating their transition into graduate programs is another emphasis. The current solicitation is 20-590. So again, a great good reading, a lot of details, because we too have a number of different tracks. There's 3 different kinds of alliances. The first 2 are for 4-year, and it could be a combination of 4-year and 2-year institutions. If an institution hasn't been part of an alliance before, if a group is starting out, they would start with the STEM pathways and implementation only alliances. After having 10 years of funding through that pathway, the alliances apply for STEM pathways and research alliances, which continues to build on their successful activities, but adds some research to it. And then we have a bridge to the doctorate activity, which is which these STEM pathways and research alliances can participate in to support students in their first 2 years of graduate school. And then we also have the alliances of only community colleges that we call Bridge to the Baccalaureate. And we have some funding for regional, foundational, and forward-thinking conferences and workshops. So the alliances are, we have 57 alliances, 9 research centers of excellence. And this represents, that's supposed to be over 600 institutions, over 500 partnerships. Over 25,000 students per year are supported by the program, and over the life of the program, more than 630,000 students have graduated. And Cheney State is part of the program. They're part of the Philadelphia Alliances for Minority Participation. And so I'm sure you may be familiar with some of the activities, and you can talk to people who are part of that to learn more about it. Just to give you an idea of some of the different, again, to show you that the alliances are sort of all over. These are from Hawaii, California State, the Pacific Northwest, Denver, and I can't even see what these other ones are right now, but they're all over, as we showed you, all over the country, and really have great students and great opportunities for the students. We have a big team. Martha James is the lead program officer. Other program officers are Sandra Montez Hunter. Leroy Jones has just joined the program as a permanent program director. Our program specialist is Cynthia Douglas, and we have the division analyst who works with us, Al Wilson, and our data scientist, Francis Carter Johnson. So that, thank you. That's all that I have to say, though I will, sorry to taking up too much time, but I'll stay around for any questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Romano. I wanted folks to also be aware of some of our other options. We have some folks who will be participating who are not from HBCUs, and wanted them to know that there are most definitely some other options out there for them to be able to pursue with their various respective research interests. I want to turn it over now to our last NSF program officer. If you can just unmute, and I think the floor is yours to share Dr. Sridhar. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that properly, but please correct me if I'm not.
Thank you very much, Dr. Morris. I'm Nigamanth Sridhar. I'm also a program officer in the Directorate for Education and Human Resources. I'm in the Division of Graduate Education. And thanks, Sandra, for the NSF intro and locating us and things like that. So which means that I don't have to do that. How much time do I have? Do I have about 5 minutes or so? Is that right?
Yes, you do. You have 5-10 minutes.
Okay. So I'm going to keep my remarks short. I have 2 programs that I was asked to talk about. And I'm going to take about 2 or 3 minutes to talk about each, and then be available for questions if there are any. So the first one I'm going to talk about is called the Secure, and let me share my slides here. Is the Secure and Trustworthy Cyberspace Program, or SATSI, which is an agency-wide activity. Actually, before we get there, this is a really cool picture that I want to share and talk about in the spirit of us not being able to go to the NSF building. This is a mural that was commissioned and put up in the first floor of the NSF building to mark the 70th anniversary of the National Science Foundation. And it shows a variety of representations of the various innovations that have come from NSF funded projects. So I like to share that because I actually started working at NSF about a week after everybody started working at home because of the pandemic. So I, throughout the time that I've worked at NSF, I've been at my house. And so every time I get a chance to show this picture and talk about it, I do. But SATC is NSF's largest research program, and it spans 5 different directorates at NSF. The Computer and Information Science and Engineering Directorate is where most of the funding for SATC comes from. But there are also projects being supported by the SPE Directorate, the Math and Physical Sciences Directorate, Engineering, and also EHR. And that's the section that I'll be talking about most, right? I mean, but if you think about the program as a whole, the idea of SATC is to really think about security and privacy as a socio-technical problem. So it's not just the technology aspects, but really how technology goes into other areas and what how humans interface with them as well. So there is a wide variety of topics that SATC covers funding in, and I won't go into this list. The intention is just to impress you with lots and lots of buzzwords. I'm kidding, but really, that's the idea here. But I want to focus specifically on the kinds of proposals that you can submit. The latest solicitation, the SATC solicitation, is 22-517, which invites 3 different kinds of proposals. What we call core, which are essentially fundamental research in any of these topics that SATC covers. TTP, which is transition to practice, and the idea there is to take existing research results and put them on the path towards practice or towards commercialization. This is not necessarily commercialization projects, because those would actually be funded by our other programs called SBIR or STTR. Those are small business innovation research and technology transfer research. The TTP is still at the university level, at the foundational research level, but sort of pointing towards practice. And then the third designation is the one that I work with directly, which is focused on cybersecurity education. And I have some information here about how much money you can ask for, how long these projects can be, and so on. But again, I won't go into the details, and I'd be happy to share these slides with the conference organizers. So EDU, which is the portion of SATC that I work with, we look for projects that are broadly focused on cybersecurity education and workforce development at all education levels. All the way from K through 12 teachers into formal and informal settings, as well as at the university, and all the way up to going up to graduate levels as well. And one specific thing that I wanted to also talk about is that there is a foundation-wide activity called Broadening Participation in Computing, and so this initiative requires that all proposals that are submitted to our computer science directorate that ask for more than $500,000 for a grant must submit a plan that talks about how the project will work on broadening participation in computing. How will the project invite people that are traditionally underserved in the computing discipline into the field? And I just wanted to leave you with one example of a SATC project. It's not very common for us to be able to point to something that everybody's probably seeing on a daily basis and say, hey, there's an NSF project. And of course, Google is one that we can point to, but anybody that uses Apple products, you may have noticed these privacy and nutrition labels that show up in the App Store. That actually was an NSF-funded research project, and I listed the award number and the title of that project up there just for fun and kicks. So So I'll start talking about Sasi and then switch gears. I know I'm already over time, but if you could bear with me for another couple of minutes, I want to talk about another really exciting research opportunity that we've launched pretty recently. And this is our EHR Racial Equity in STEM education program description. I want to point out one specific thing about this, which is that this opportunity is not what's called a solicitation, like all the other ones that Sandra talked about or Carleitta talked about. This is a program description which essentially gives you as proposers a whole lot more flexibility in terms of what kinds of projects you can propose and what kinds of requests you can make for budgets and things like that. So this particular funding opportunity is supported by all divisions in our education directorate. So you see the list of the 4 different divisions inside of our directorate, and all the programs in these divisions support the racial equity in STEM education program description. And the goal of this particular funding opportunity is to really tackle racial inequities and think carefully about systemic racism and the barriers that systemic racism has erected in the area of STEM and STEM education, and to dismantling those barriers. So you see on the slide here, the keywords of advancing science and promotion, to be contributing to removing systemic barriers, institutionalizing those inclusive environments, diversifying project leadership. That is, who do we hear from as NSF? We want to be receiving proposals from people that have not traditionally asked for NSF funding, and really expand the array of topics and perspectives and experiences in STEM. So again, the primary question that we're interested in proposals submitted to this program description, and actually Dr. Romano is also a member of our team, is to really ask the question of how do systemic barriers impact access to, retention in, and success in STEM education, research, and workforce development. So the focus really is on addressing systemic racism and advancing racial equity. So if you think about what kinds of proposals would fit, we're really painting a really broad brush and saying anything that articulates a rigorous plan to generate knowledge in these different ways, right? You could build theories, you could develop new methods, you could test approaches and interventions. Think about assessing the potential or efficacy of approaches and interventions, creating and cultivating authentic partnerships, and changing institutional or organizational structural practices, and really thinking about broadly about how the behavior of people, whether they are in leadership positions, in academia or elsewhere in the STEM world, how they how barriers to access and equity can be dismantled is really the focus of this particular program. I'll also leave some contact information. There is an email address that you can use. That's just phrracialequitypd@nsf.gov. There are 13 program officers on our team that work together, and sending email to this email address will get to all of us. There's also a website that I've listed there, and I'll share that with the conference organizers. But if you go to that website, there are longer versions of presentations, videos from webinars that we've done before, and we invite people to send us a one-page description of their project before they actually write the whole proposal, right? So if you send us a one-pager, one of us would be happy to spend 20-25 minutes with you on a Zoom call to go over your idea and sort of help you better fit your proposal to the program. And also, like Sandra said before, we're always looking for reviewers, and that's probably the best way to engage with an NSF program, and that's to review for serve on the review panel, because it really gives you a strong view into how NSF works and how you can be successful as a proposer and PI as well. So I'll stop there, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer questions. But I also realize that we're all already over time, we can end there as well. I'll leave my email address in the chat as well if you have any questions about either of these two programs.
Okay, so thank you so much. It's really good I'm okay with us being overtime. This is such great information on all these wonderful opportunities that are out there that some folks may not be aware of. And I'm really happy that each of our NSF presenters have been able to and will be able to share their slides. We'll get them posted on our site. So that others will be able to connect in and also see and learn about these different opportunities. There are different ways to engage. So not only as submitting a proposal, but who knows, you can also be a program reviewer, right? Gives you another lens to take a look at things from, probably also be able to learn a couple of things along the way in order to be able to get ready to actually submit a project idea.
Can I add one more thing as well, if you don't mind? So all three of us here are what are called rotator program officers. Sandra mentioned that in her presentation as well. What that means is, all of us have faculty positions or other jobs, and we're on loan from our institution to NSF for a specific period of time. So about a third of all program officers, maybe even a little more than that at NSF are IPAs, are rotators. And it really helps NSF keep the community engaged, not just in terms of the projects we fund, but also in helping drive programs. So that's another opportunity as well to engage, which is to if this sort of thing excites you, if looking for ideas and helping fund proposals excites you, apply for a job as a rotator at NSF. We're always looking.
And I just want to add to what Nigamanth's saying. First of all, that Carleitta is actually a permanent program officer.
My apologies.
So she is forever there, a federal employee, and she comes from an HBCU. And I just wanted to say that my home, but I am a rotator, and just it is an incredible way to learn. It's like drinking from a fire hose, and you just get. So I have to say too, my home institution is the University of the Virgin Islands, which is the only HBCU in the Caribbean. And it's a small institution. We just have less than a few thousand students. And I've been there for 20 years. Coming to NSF has just, the perspective and the view that it gives you is just incredible. So those advertisements come out regularly, and please apply. And again, to reiterate, reviewers, acting as a reviewer, you just learn so much about making the sausage, sausage making, because that's kind of what it is. So I really encourage you, if just reach out to one of us. If you have like a 2-page CV, or a short resume, tell us what you're interested in. We can find the right people, but we really encourage you to serve as reviewers. It's a great experience.
Okay, so thank you so much. Really happy that we've learned today that there's not just only one way to go with this in terms of developing your research ideas, but there's opportunities for you to engage directly from the other side. As a reviewer, there's also some opportunities for you to bring your perspective to what is being done in terms of, probably even serving as one of the rotating officers from your institution to NSF for a period of time. Just wanted everyone to know that our next sessions are where we would actually hear from 2 folks who have been funded, some several times through NSF, and they are here to share out with us, their journey, tell us a little bit about how they've developed their research idea into an actual sponsored project, talk about some of the challenges along the way and how they might have broken through those barriers, and to also be able to provide some support to some of our folks who are participating with us, to be able to know, how do they even begin to start with an application, or how do they even begin to start with some of what Dr. Paige Anderson had said to us, right? You need to be very clear with your research interests. I wrote that down, right? Because that's kind of where it all starts. So in the chat, we did post how folks can connect in. You have one of two options, and please note that these two presentations will be repeated again tomorrow. So if you choose one, you're not going to miss out on the other, because you're going to be able to engage tomorrow to hear. Hopefully you are seeing where you can engage with either Dr. Jones, who will be talking a little bit about some of her mentorship types of projects that she has on the way, or you can engage with Dr. Lewis, who will be sharing a little bit about some of the different collaboratives that he has done with various research projects, and how he's been able to help with building relationships and forming those authentic connections in order to help our communities of color in terms of diversifying STEM. So I will post again the information in the chat and ask folks to just connect through by clicking on the link and be able to then choose your session. We want folks to be able to choose a session or gravitate accordingly to the one that's of interest for today, and then be able to connect again tomorrow using the other one. I want to just thank again all of our program officers for sharing out. I will collect the presentations and make sure that we can get them PDF and posted to our website. And also thank you folks, because we do have some folks who are connecting in through our live stream on YouTube to be able to receive that information as well. Thanks everyone. And see you over on the other side in one of our collaborative research sessions.